You know what was one thing that we talked about a little bit that I guess I never really articulated in a way that, in the way that we kind of talked about is when we were talking about some of the, posting of controversial things, and one of the new trends right now, which is people posting a lot about how they're handling off-leash dog situations and things like that.
Yeah.
And I feel like the way we approached that conversation when him and I were talking about it was from a lot more of a lens of like empathy to the other person, you know? Like I feel like sometimes as trainers, we need to put ourselves in a position where, yes, we need to protect our dog we're with, right? If I'm out on a walk and an off-leash dog comes barreling at me while I'm walking my 4 dogs or something like that, like I'm going to do anything I need to make that dog go away. And I do think it's very irresponsible of the other person to just have their dog off-leash to go run up and approach people and dogs and stuff like that, right? But if I were to really look at my day-to-day, that's happening so infrequently. Like once or twice a year, maybe, do I actually have an off-leash dog that gets so close to making contact with my dogs when I'm out and about in public that I need to actually do something about it to make that dog go away, or I get into some sort of altercation with the owner over it or something like that. Like it happens so infrequently, and I think that's because I take a degree of responsibility of, it's like they talk about like defensive driving. Right. I used to joke a lot about like I teach owners how to do defensive walking with their dogs. I think we might have talked about that on the podcast before, where it's like, just because I can take my dog everywhere doesn't mean I should. Like sometimes I need to assess the places I'm going to be going. And if there are places that I know are notorious for having off-leash dogs at, right, I'm going to avoid those places. Even if I'd love to be able to walk my dog through that fucking area, I'm just not going to do it because it's not worth the hassle.
Yeah.
It's not worth me going there and getting in the mix of this thing that these people do all the time, whether it's right or wrong, right? And then getting mad at them and yelling at them and starting this big fight over their dogs rushing up to me. I'm just going to avoid that situation.
Yeah.
Right? Or as I'm walking, right? Just being a little bit more aware of what's going on around you. Right? There's some videos I've seen going around of, somebody's got their dog in a down state and a dog is like walking 2 feet past their dog and then kind of pulls over to sniff at the dog. The person's like, no, don't let your dog do that. Your dog's not allowed to do that, blah, blah, blah. Right? And it's like, when we go for walks at parks with our dogs, right? I instruct owners as we're we're walking down the path, right? And I see another dog coming, that's 100 feet away, 100 yards away, whatever, right?
Yep.
Far away, right? Every single time I run into that situation, because I don't want dogs approaching my dog, right? I always teach the owner. I was like, all right, so let's look at this situation. The dog is on a flexi lead right now. Dog's all over the place, right? I just watched the owner let the dog pull up to the first 3 people that walked by them, right? The dog seems totally out of control. He's not reeling the dog in on the flexi lead at all.
Yeah.
I'm not even going to try to pass by that person.
No.
Right? I am going to create the biggest arc around that person where it is impossible for them to let their dog get to my dog.
Yeah.
Right? On the contrary, right? Let's say owner's walking their dog on a 6-foot leash. Seems like the dog's in a heel position, right? Owner's got good control. The dog's not approaching any people or dogs, right? Even then, I'm going to create enough distance away from that dog where my rule of thumb is like, if my dog were to lunge at this dog and that dog were to lunge at my dog, that there's still enough space where they couldn't actually make contact with each other.
Yeah.
Right? So if their dog's on a 6-foot leash and my dog's on a 6-foot leash, I am going to be effectively, what would that be? Probably 15 feet away from the person as I pass by to account for 6 feet of leashes on both sides and then a little bit of wiggle room in between.
Yeah.
Right? So defensive walking and not putting yourself in a position where this conflict is going to happen in the first place. Right? And I think the way we talked about it was really important because I do think I see so many people talking about like, what do you do when an off-leash dog approaches your dog? And the number one things that go out, and we're guilty of this. We've talked about this also, right? And I do stand by these things, right? If I run into an emergency situation where an off-leash dog is approaching, right? You could use a pet corrector. You could throw something at the dog. You could try to whack it away with your leash. You can kick it away. You can do whatever you need to do to protect your dog ultimately. But really the answer to that question is don't let it happen in the first place.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, their brain goes to, well, people are going to do what they're going to do. Well, why do I take dogs out in public every single day, multiple times a day, and it only happens to me maybe once or twice a year?
Yeah.
Maybe once or twice a year. taking a little bit of personal responsibility for it.
Yeah.
And I thought that part of the conversation was really important. I did want to kind of piggyback off of that a little bit and break it down a little bit more, because I think that side of things isn't talked about enough, of like, let's take some responsibility for why we're putting our dog in a position where that is happening so much in the first place.
Yeah. No, that's true. I mean, like you were saying about the examples on like TikTok with that guy, it's like you're looking for a problem, you know, at
Sometimes,
that point,
yeah.
pretty much. And like, that's not, like you said, it's completely not fair, A, to the dog that you're training, I feel like, and B, to the person and the other dog.
Yeah.
You know, they're just trying to have a walk. They're just trying to live their life, and you're kind of bringing them into this, you know, situation that they didn't want to be in.